Muslims from all over the world pay homage to Maqam Ibrahim. This shrine is actually the pedestal of Brahma. Notice that the word Ibrahim is actually a corruption of the word Brahma. The octagonal grill, which is a Vedic design, protects the holy footprints which represent the start of the creation. Before it was captured by the Muslims, it was an international shrine of the Vedic Trinity. In fact, the names of the holiest of Muslim cities Makkah and Medina come from the Sanskrit words Makka Medini, which means the land of fire worship or sacrifice. Even the most ancient names of these two cities were Makodaval, which came from Mahadeva, Lord Shiva, and Yatraban, which came from Yatrasthan, place of pilgrimage. Islam came into being about 1372 years ago. It is well known that over 7,500 years ago, at the time of the Mahabharat war, gurus ruled the world. The scions of that family administered the different regions. Prophet Muhammad himself and his family were adherents of Vedic culture. The Encyclopedia Islamia admits as much when it says, Muhammad's grandfather and uncles were hereditary priests of the Kaaba temple, which housed 360 idols. According to Arab traditions, Muhammad is a title. We do not know what name his parents have given him. We do, however, know that the central object of worship which survives at the Kaaba today is a shivling. That was allowed to remain there because that was the faceless family deity of Muhammad's family. One of the original names of Lord Shiva is Mahadev, the great god, therefore it is entirely possible Muhammad came from Mahadev. This appears fairly certain because the Arabs still have a Mahadevi sect. Moreover, the title Mehdi of a Muslim chief is also a mispronunciation of the term Mahadeva. According to Sanskrit etymology, the term Muhammad implies a person of great inspiration, Mahan Madayusha Asau Muhammada. In a hostile sense, it also implies a person of a proud and haughty temperament. The Qurayshi tribe into which Muhammad was born was particularly devoted to Allah and the three children of the moon god. Therefore, when Muhammad decided to create his own divine religion, he took innumerable aspects of the daily Vedic culture that surrounded him and corrupted them to suit his needs. It was with the advent of the Prophet and Islam that the death knell of the glorious Arab culture was sounded. With Islam came the flood of destruction, murder, plunder and crime that destroyed the great Vedic heritage of Arabs. The Prophet merely took some existing artifacts and terms and corrupted them so profoundly that no one would be able to discover their actual origins. Women married men of their choice and were financially independent. They were entrepreneurs, artisans, poets and even warriors. Later on, Muhammad would marry Khadija, who was not only a wealthy merchant but also in the position to choose her own husband. This clearly demonstrates the level of freedom women enjoy in Vedic Arabia. Hind, who was the wife of Muhammad's chief enemy Abu Sufyan, herself participated in the battlefield. Hind opposed Muhammad tooth and nail. She followed her husband to the battlefield, and when Abu Sufyan surrendered Makkah to Muhammad without a fight, she caught hold of him in the marketplace and cried, "Kill this fat greasy bladder of lard. What a rotten protector of the people." When Muhammad tried to baptize her and asked her not to commit adultery, she spat out the bitter words, "A free woman does not commit adultery." How proud this woman was of the rights and privileges that her Vedic society had invested to her. It was Islam that extinguished the light of knowledge in Vedic Arabia. It is ironic that the man who brought about such darkness himself belonged to the Qurayshi tribe of Makkah. The Qurayshi were particularly devoted to Allah, Buddha, and the famous shivling of the Kaaba temple. The fact that the shivling remains to this day in the Kaaba is solely due to the fact that it happened to be the Qurayshi tribe's faceless family deity. As I mentioned before, Muhammad's name itself came from Mahadeva, which is another cognate for Lord Shiva. Muhammad's own uncle, Umar bin Hashim, was a staunch Hindu and fervent devotee of Lord Shiva. He was a renowned poet and wrote many verses in praise of Shiva. One of these has survived on page 235 of Ser-ul-Okul, which translates as, "The man who may spend his life in sin and irreligion or waste it in lechery and wrath, if at least he relent and return to righteousness, can he be saved? If but once he worships Mahadeva with a pure heart, he will attain the ultimate in spirituality. O Lord Shiva, exchange my entire life for but a day's sojourn in India where one attains salvation." Muhammad's uncle was one of the resident priests of the Shiv temple known as Kaaba. This sacred sanctum was decorated in an extremely rich and beautiful fashion. The Kaaba was astronomically oriented to face the winds. The minor axis of the rectangular base of the Kaaba was solistically aligned towards summer sunrise and winter sunset. It contained 360 statues of Vedic deities and was a shrine primarily associated with sun worship. This representation of a microcosm demonstrated by the eight-directional structure was derived from the Tantric pattern of Hinduism. Right at the center of the Kaaba was the octagonal pedestal of Brahma, the creator. It is no wonder that Muhammad, armed with his facade of a new brand of religion, set out to capture the immense wealth of the Vedic shrine of Makkah. After plundering the riches of the Kaaba, the wealth enabled him to systematically destroy all traces of the religion that threatened him so directly. It is an indisputable fact that money will make any low criminal devoutly religious in a hurry. Despite the fact that Muhammad had to destroy all traces of Hinduism in order to make his new religion work, he knew that in order to fool people convincingly he would have to borrow from the Vedic culture that surrounded him. Being illiterate, he picked out rituals and symbols that he didn't understand and distorted and falsified them for his own ends. Here is a list of these distortions. Muhammad destroyed all 360 idols, but even he could not summon the courage to completely obliterate the shivling in the Kaaba. He entered the temple and kissed the black stone. The shivling was so sacred that the man who so detested idol worship ended up kissing the largest idol in the Kaaba. Later his followers, in a fit of piety, broke the shivling and then out of remorse repatched it together again. Today it lies broken at 7 places and held together by a silver band studded with silver nails, bearing the name Sanjay Aswad, which came from the Sanskrit Ashwat, meaning non-white or black stone. He jumbled up the Sanskrit words Nama and Yuja, which meant bowing and worshipping, respectively, into a combination word namaz and used it to describe this prescribed method of prayer. Because the Vedic custom was to pray facing the east, in his hatred for all things Hindu, he directed his followers to pray facing only the west. The method of circling around a shrine 7 times in a clockwise direction is an ancient Vedic custom. Muhammad, with his lack of originality, decided that the 7 ritual perambulations should be retained, but again in his hatred of all things Vedic decided the direction of the perambulations should be anti-clockwise. With his phobia of all things Vedic, Muhammad knew that the greatest reminder and threat to his forced brand of religion were the beautiful Vedic idols of Arabic temples. Thus he destroyed every idol he could find and made idol worship the greatest crime for a Muslim. Such a man could never have comprehended how an abstract concept can be conveyed through a symbolic representation in the form of an image. Thus he made all image representation a sin as well. Vedic religion is known for its ancient oral tradition. It is well known that the Vedic culture emphasized oral debate and expression far more than the written word. In addition, the oral recitation of Vedic scriptures was always done in a lyrical fashion, utilizing music and thus reaching a height of expression. In fear of this musical tradition, Muhammad decided to forbid music. All Arabic copies of the Quran have the mysterious figure 786 imprinted on them. No Arabic scholar has been able to determine the choice of this particular number as divine. It is an established fact that Muhammad was illiterate, therefore it is obvious that he would not be able to differentiate numbers from letters. This magical number is none other than the Vedic holy letter, Om, written in Sanskrit, refer to figure 2. Anyone who knows Sanskrit can try reading the symbol for Om backwards in the Arabic way and magically the number 786 will appear. Muslims in their ignorance simply do not realize that this special number is nothing more than the holiest of Vedic symbols must read. There are many such instances where the symbols and rituals of Vedic culture were completely distorted and falsified by Muhammad in his bid to create his brand new religion. However, in his haste to deceive and because of his ignorance and illiteracy, thousands of Vedic symbols still remain. Although they have been distorted beyond imagination, they still remain as solemn reminders of Arabia's glorious Vedic past. They can never be suppressed. In fact, the rise of Islam put a full stop to all the previous knowledge of Arabia. The imperialistic message of Islam diverted all energies into raiding, looting and destruction. The incentive to learn and preserve the Vedic wisdom that had thrived in Arabia for so many centuries was wiped out by the brutal pressure of Islam. Making easy money through loot and massacre was far more appealing than upholding the tenets of ancient knowledge. Everyone had to become a raider, if not from choice then for the sake of surviving the absolute intolerance of dissenters that Islam preached. Thus was the light of learning extinguished in Arabia. All that remained was the Quran, the Kalma and the murderous hatred of anything non-Muslim. This is how heartbreaking the history of Arabia is. These are the unspoken words of the Arabian ancestors who have been watching their motherland in such downfall for centuries.